Hi everyone, today in our video we are going to be talking about the central nervous system and the anatomy and their physiology, right? So we know that when we talk about the central nervous system, we are talking about the part of the nervous system found at the cranium, the bony part of the nervous system, right? Divided into the brain and the spinal cord, right? So whereas the brain is found at the cranium or that bone part, the spinal cord is found at the spine. Yes, and that is the one that controls almost all the reflex actions, involuntary activities. Yes, and reflex activities. That is the spinal cord. Sorry. So the brain, like we said, is found at the cranium, and we understand that the brain has two hemispheres that is held together by the bundles of axons we call the corpus callosum. Yeah, the brain is divided into the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain, and we will try to, as a matter of fact, try to simplify it because we need to have an understanding in respect to this course so that we can also touch what we came for, right? And very important. So we said it has two hemispheres joined by the bundle of axon together by the bundle of axon we call the corpus callosum. Yeah, and we are saying that the brain has three major divisions, and we call them the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So in the forebrain, yes, in the forebrain we have the thalamus. Yes, the thalamus is responsible for relaying messages to the appropriate quarters. Yes, it can really gather the message, take it from wherever it's coming from, north, east, west, and south, and take it to the right place it's going to. That is thalamus in action, and is found in the forebrain. Another one is the hypothalamus, a very tiny part. Yes, it coordinates emotions and motivations and links it to the pituitary gland. Yes, a lot of hunger behavior, thirst behavior, sexual behavior, a lot of anything that has to do with emotion, most of those emotional related behaviors, motivations, right? Like hunger, like motivation, I want to eat, I want to do this, all of these things are activities you see in the activities coordinated by the hypothalamus, which it does, relaying it through the pituitary gland. Yes, very important. Then we have the cerebrum. The cerebrum, yes, that is the largest part of the forebrain, or in fact the brain in total. Yes, in totality, the cerebrum, right? That the cerebrum coordinates all sensory information or messages, including learning and memory. Yes, the cerebrum has that function. So that is the third one we're talking about. Even problem solving, language, decision making, cerebrum has a lot of part to play in that. Then it has two hemispheres like we're talking about. The dicephalon and the telecephalon, right? And importantly, the cerebrum is divided. These two hemispheres, they are divided into four different lobes, right? We have the temporal lobe, which is responsible for auditory processing and memory, right? The occipital lobe is responsible for visual processing. Yes, that's the occipital lobe. Then we have the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is responsible for motor activities or motor processing or motor control and decision making and language. You understand when we say motor control, why are you walking and you didn't fall? How do you know you were falling, and how were you able to gather yourself? You know, that's when we talk about the proprioceptive senses and the kinesthetic senses, which is not what we're doing now, right? So then the last is a parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is responsible for activities like spatial awareness, yes, and other sensory processing, right? So another part of the forebrain, we have talked about the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the cerebrum, which we have speciated further, right, via the two lobes and the four lobes and two hemispheres, right? The fourth part of the forebrain we are talking about today is the one we call the limbic system. We are calling the limbic system because it's a system containing several parts of the brain. That is where we see things like, or places like the amygdala, the hippocampus. Amygdala is responsible for emotional memory, hippocampus for episodic and events, right? Tying those emotional memory that the amygdala have to events, yes, yeah, and episodes. Then we have cingulate gyrus. The cingulate gyrus, you still see it in the limbic system, is responsible for, when you say cingulate, please, S-I-N-G-U-L-A-T-E, right? Gyrus is G-Y-R-U-S. G-Y-R-U-S is responsible for error detection. Yes, when you are in trouble, or you understand. So that is the cingulate gyrus. Then we have nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens, N-U-C-L-E-U-S. Then accumbens is spelled A-C-C-O-U-M-B-E-N-C. Yes, nucleus accumbens is responsible for we call it reward behaviors, right? Like smoking, cocaine, all of those. Yeah, any behavior that has reward tendencies, like this aspect, this part of the limbic system controls that. So you understand that we are done with the forebrain, where we talked about the thalamus, hypothalamus, the cerebrum, the limbic system. And inside the limbic system, we saw the amygdala, the hippocampus, the cingulate gyrus. Then we saw the last one we call the nucleus accumbens. Yeah. Then from here we are going to the the second part of the division of the brain, which is the midbrain. The midbrain includes the tectum. Yes. The tectum is divided into the superior and the inferior colliculi. Yeah, colliculi. Yeah, that's what we call it. The superior and the inferior colliculi. That is the divisions of the tectum, part of the midbrain, right? And this part is responsible for visual and auditory processing. Yes, that is for this part of the midbrain, the superior and auditory inferior colliculi. They not only help to process these visual memories and everything, they also control your eye movement. Why are you able to focus on it, and why are you able to look elsewhere or face your face somewhere, and yet your eyes can go towards right or left? The tectum controls that. Then with the next part is the tegmentum. It is responsible for motor control, arousal, and sleep-wake cycle. Yes, the sleep-wake cycle. Perhaps this is where you see the pineal gland. I don't know. So the tectum control arousal, motor control, and that sleep-wake cycle. Another part responsible that is involved in sleep-wake cycle again is the reticular activating system, also in this midbrain. Yes. So, and that is the parts you see in the midbrain: the tectum, the tegmentum, the reticular activating system. Yes, and then okay, remember the tectum is divided into the superior and the inferior colliculi. Yeah, we have said that. Now we are going to the hindbrain. The hindbrain, yeah, or you call it the hindbrain. Yes, it's also called the brainstem. The hindbrain, H-I-N-D, right? It's called the brainstem, right? And it consists of several parts of the brain, which includes the pons. Yes, The pons help to relay signals and control sleep. That's the pons, right? We have the medulla, or we call it the medulla oblongata. It's very important. It regulates several vital functions of the brain, such as breathing, the breathing, heart rate, even the blood pressure. The medulla oblongata takes care of that. We have this time is not cerebrum, we call it cerebellum. Yes, the cerebellum. That is this part in the hindbrain. It is also known as the new brain. It controls all the voluntary and some involuntary functions. Yes, that is especially when we talk about motor control, even balance, like I said before. Yes, the cerebellum takes care of that. So, having done this, we have that in summary about the central nervous system, that the central nervous system is divided into the central nervous, the brain and the spinal cord. And we say that the spinal cord is controlling all the reflex memories, reflex behaviors. Yes, that is the activity of the spinal cord. And about the brain, we discussed that the brain has two hemispheres. That's the hemispheres of the cerebrum that is held together by the bundle of axon we call the corpus callosum. We also submitted that the brain has three divisions, which we simplified to refer to the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. And in the forebrain, we talked about the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the cerebrum with its four lobes, that is the temporal, occipital, parietal, and the frontal, right? We talked about that, and we talked about the another part, which is the limbic system. So yes, thalamus, hypothalamus, cerebrum, the limbic system, which includes the amygdala, the hippocampus, the cingulate gyrus, and then the nucleus accumbens. Yes, and we also gave the functions. Then we have the midbrain, which includes the tectum divided into two, that is superior and inferior colliculi. Then we have the tegmentum. Then we have the reticular activating system, we call it RAS or RAF. They also call it reticular activating function or reticular activating system, which I also highlighted. Is also responsible for sleep-wake cycle. Reasons why you can sleep in a noisy environment. Oh, before you knew it, you could sleep despite the music, right? Before you knew it, you could just adjust and start reading despite the noise from your classmates or the environment. This is RAS in action, right? Yes, by the way. So by hindbrain, in hindbrain we have pons, P-O-N-S, we have medulla, we have the cerebellum. Yes, that is the size of this video, and we'll be glad to have you in our next video when we talk about other activities of physiological psychology. Thank you, and see you in the next video.